Good afternoon, everyone. I'm going to talk a little bit first about the rationale behind our actions, and then give a few examples of what we try to do in the area here in Exarhia. First of all, we believe that in Greece, the housing issue at present is mainly due to the orchestrated impoverishment of the people, which began with a stock market bubble and has reached the point now of severe cuts on wages and pensions in the name of the public debt. Our homes and public property in general are being sacrificed for the sake of this debt with the use of legislative measures. Each of the recently voted memoranda brought a set of laws to entrench and safeguard the interests of the creditors. On top of that, the accompanying law on the so-called PSI, as we know it here in Greece, the trimming of the debt, as well as the law voted in Parliament on last month, ratifying the related legislative acts, have diminished all kinds of protective measures that used to secure private and public property against the predatory strategies of Greece's creditors. Through these laws, the Greek government has granted every piece of movable and immovable asset to TAIPED, that's the fund for the deployment of the private property of the state, which ensures the servicing of the public debt. Through these laws, the creditors acquire the right to confiscate Greek public assets, both movable and immovable. Greek citizens, thus, though through taxation, are bound to these assets, as private property may be confiscated by the state only to be offered to its creditors. So, we, the Social Solidarity Network of Exarhia, in coordination with other movements, resist and mobilize against the above. We strive to expose the strategies of overtaxation pursued by the government and to deny their legality. We refuse not only to pay imposed taxes, but also try to subvert the measures taken to entrench them. Our struggle against the tax-imposing policy is a struggle against the ongoing impoverishment, a struggle to protect the fundamental right to housing. This orchestrated impoverishment of the Greek people has opened up the pathway to confiscations of private assets and repossessions by the banks. Hundreds of thousands of households under mortgages are unable to cover basic needs and pay for their housing loans. This involves a good 50% of mortgages as well as consumer loans. We do not have exact figures as some other groups have, but we don't need them for what we do, because we can see this happening all around us. According to a recent law known in Greece as the Katseli law, public auctions have been frozen, at least for the year 2013, for assets valued below 200,000 euros. However, repossessions of thousands of small properties are just around the corner if we consider the imminent increase of land values that has been planned by the government. In the face of this double threat launched by government and banks, we all consider ourselves as potentially homeless, no matter whether we owe money to the government and the banks or not, no matter whether we are house owners or renters. Our actions aim, on the one hand, to protect housing rights, and on the other hand, to resist future repossessions and evictions. To this end, we recently organized a public discussion on possible courses of action, which proved very fruitful. Our struggle seeks to secure the right to housing as a basic social right, like health, education, and culture. So we demand that the homeless be accommodated in unused buildings. We demand the reconstitution of the Organization for Social Housing that has been dismantled. We demand a policy of rent subsidized for low-income social groups. A point that has been mentioned by other speakers. The commodification of housing, that is housing seen as merchandise and not as a right, through government policy implicates a series of official and private capital interests which involve the government, the banks, real estate companies and large-scale planning of investments and disinvestments in specific areas. In this sense, the commodification of housing becomes a field of severe speculation, and hence the fear of confiscation acts as a repressive measure against every aspect of social struggle. Therefore, our struggle against the commodification of houses seeks to inform people, first of all, and then try to eliminate the widespread fear and divisions between small-scale owners and renters, between legal and illegal settlements. Historically, planning policies have utilized real estate investments and disinvestments in order to move populations around, aiming in this way to upgrade or degrade, accordingly, neighborhoods within cities and wider geographical areas. This uneven development has various repercussions depending on the scale of planning. On the one hand, oversupply of labor, and on the other hand, the tacit divisions among residents of areas have facilitated this ongoing strategy of divide and rule. Planning policies have never been innocent and they have never been random. They have acted as a profit-gaining tool and a social control and repression mechanism. Finally, we should not forget that the right to decent housing is also closely bound to a series of other rights, such as cheap transportation, sufficient infrastructure, aesthetic upgrading, and the protection of the environment. Hence, the movement for housing seeks to include actions that encompass all the above and embrace the struggles of neighborhood movements around these rights. To sum up, our homes are in danger, not only by the state and the banks, but also by real estate and big construction companies, as well as by environmental degradation. So our personal choices are very important in this regard. We must not allow authority to set up its own profit game on the very need for dignified housing. And for all the above, to this end, what we're trying to do at this very moment is, first of all, we are trying to identify and register abandoned buildings, public ones or not likely to be claimed by their owners, with a view to housing homeless fellow citizens, especially the newly impoverished ones, who have not had the time yet to become immersed in self-depreciation and, so to speak, give up. There is a distinction here that relates to the homeless. We are also collaborating with existing organizations for the homeless so as to gain from their experience in how to effectively approach the homeless in a non-condescending manner, which is very important if we are to work with them. Apart from that, we are actively supporting squats. There is a very rich tradition in this area of squats that has gone on for decades. And already occupied buildings acting as social centers. Only last week there was a protest march of the various self-organized groups in the area against police repression and brutality and in defense of squats and social centers in Exarhia. And here you can see one of the posters that you have probably seen around the streets in the neighborhood, and another poster from a former protest that took place. Actually, the building that houses our group, the network, as well as many other groups, self-organized groups, it's in itself a squat. It's where you had dinner last night, and you will probably have dinner again tonight, I think, according to the program. So, we are also trying to create a network of people that will be available to take immediate action to stop repossessions and evictions, as has been done in the case of Spain. So far, we have been successful a number of times in other forms of action we have taken in stopping the disconnection of power supply to many who could not pay either the electricity bills or their taxes. And we believe it can also work in the case of repossessions and evictions. This is a picture of the talk we organized, and the title of this in Greek was "Kanena spiti sta chiria trapeziti," which translates as something like "No home in the hand of bankers." It was in December 2012, and this is where all these things were discussed and started being put into practice. At this very moment, we are collaborating with citizens' committees and popular assemblies from 15 different areas in Athens and Attica, wider Attica, with the purpose of organizing a rally against the new tax bill, which will greatly aggravate the situation for the weaker many. The exact form of action to be taken is under discussion and will be implemented within the following weeks. You can see here pictures of another protest that took place in collaboration with these 15 different groups. It was at the central offices of the power supply company. It is very recent, only two weeks ago. And when we arrived there, we saw dozens of armed police and special forces. The offices had been closed down, so it was an indication that we are considered, from now onwards, we're considered dangerous. And we'll see how this develops. Another thing that we try to do, which we think is related, we also participate in anti-fascist movements and initiatives, one of which will be taking place tomorrow in nearby Abelokipi, against the opening of Golden Dawn's offices in the area. And for those who think it unrelated to the housing issue, suffice it to say that the real estate companies have had great opportunity to rejoice at the establishment of the Agios Panteleimonos and Attiki Square precinct as the Golden Dawn's headquarters, because the reign of fear has, apart from everything else, pushed many residents to sell out and leave these areas. So we think these things are interconnected, and this is the poster for the march taking place tomorrow, Saturday, at 1 p.m. Kifisias and Alexander's two main avenues here in Athens. Another thing we try to do, we try to sensitize landlords who have not been paid the rent, to sensitize them to the risk of having their flats left vacant indefinitely, and thus to persuade them not to evict the renters, but try to find some middle ground by lowering their demands, reducing the rent, even leaving the rental unrecorded, which is common practice, of course, in Greece. But perhaps they could, more consciously resort to something like this. And of course, we try to produce and disseminate printed, informative, and rallying material, as well as maintain a very active blog that you can also visit. Of course, we don't really have much in English, but we'll try to translate at least the basic information about our actions and make it available to you. This is part of the material. We produce the handouts, go around the neighborhood and try to make them available. We also inform small-scale property owners who are in debt to banks or to the state about the options available to them so that they won't lose their homes. And this could vary from bringing them in contact with consumer rights organizations or lawyers, if they choose to come to an arrangement with a bank or restructure their debt, to recognizing total refusal to pay. In the case, for example, of taxes perceived to be unjust and or anti-constitutional as a form of civil disobedience. And to this effect, we hold regular meetings, and anyone from the neighborhood, but also from other areas, is free to join and express their opinion. It should be noted, though, that we will not do something for the people who come to us, but we will do something with them. And it is this very notion of assignment that we are striving to resist, as it is the only way to the citizens' bottom-up empowerment very nice word, but very difficult to achieve at the same time, and emancipation, advocated and sought by all social movements and neighborhood assemblies. And I would like to finish by saying that we are here not only to try and keep the wolf from the door, we are here to defend our home in the sense of personal residence, but more importantly in terms of community ties and solidarity against the menacing wolves of neoliberal governments, their creditors and their watchdogs. And this is taken from a bus stop out on the street. For those who can't speak Greek, there's an old saying in Greek, poverty calls for partying. And what is written here is that poverty calls for uprising. And this is the stand we take. Thank you for listening. Just one extra thing. This Sunday, for those of you who are still around, we're holding a party which is intended to get to know, open to a wider range of people around the neighborhood, not only that. And we also call on people to support the network. So it takes place on Sunday at 1 approximately and onwards, 1 p.m. There will be snacks, drinks available, live music. So anyone who would like to is welcome, most welcome, to come to 15 Tamadou Street, the little pedestrian street just off Exarhia Square. Thank you very much.